Let me begin directly, because what is happening between Washington and Tehran right now is not diplomacy in the normal sense of the word. It is not a routine negotiation. It is not another round of technical meetings where diplomats exchange carefully worded statements and then disappear behind closed doors while reporters speculate outside the building. What is happening right now between the United States and Iran feels different. The atmosphere is different. The language is different. The stakes are dramatically higher. And there is one detail emerging from these negotiations that is not receiving nearly enough attention considering what it could mean not only for the Middle East, but for global energy markets, military alliances, and the balance of power across the region for the next decade. Because while headlines are focused on whether a deal will happen, whether sanctions will be lifted, whether uranium enrichment will be frozen, and whether Washington and Tehran can avoid another military confrontation, there is a more important question sitting underneath all of it. Why are both sides suddenly negotiating this intensely right now? Why now? Why after years of escalation? Why after sanctions? Why after proxy attacks? Why after missile launches? Why after months of rhetoric that suggested compromise was politically impossible on both sides? That is the real story. And to understand it, you have to begin with the room itself. The latest round of negotiations took place under extraordinary diplomatic pressure. American officials entered carrying one objective publicly and another privately. Publicly, the objective is simple: prevent Iran from moving any closer to a nuclear weapons threshold. Privately, the objective is broader and much more urgent: stabilize the region before the current pressure campaign produces an escalation that Washington can no longer contain without direct military involvement. Iran entered with its own two-track calculation. Publicly, Tehran insists it will not negotiate under coercion, that its sovereignty is non-negotiable, that sanctions must be removed, and that it has every legal right to continue its civilian nuclear program. Privately, the calculus is more complicated because Iran's leadership is dealing with simultaneous pressure on multiple fronts: economic strain, regional uncertainty, oil export vulnerability, currency pressure, internal political tension, and a strategic question that every leadership circle in Tehran understands with complete clarity, even if nobody says it openly. Can Iran maintain maximum leverage while avoiding maximum confrontation? That question is now sitting at the center of every negotiation, and Washington understands it, which is why the American negotiating position appears firm on the surface, but unusually flexible underneath. Officially, the message remains hard: no nuclear weapon, verification, regional restraint, compliance. But then you begin noticing the smaller details: the quieter language, the less aggressive tone from certain officials, the renewed diplomatic channels, the indirect messaging through regional partners, the timing of statements from European allies, the deliberate emphasis on de-escalation. And suddenly, the picture becomes larger than a nuclear agreement. Because this is not only about centrifuges, it is about time. Washington needs time, Tehran needs time, and both governments know the cost of running out of it. Iran's leverage still matters enormously. The Strait of Hormuz remains one of the most strategically important waterways on Earth. A significant percentage of global energy flows through that corridor. Any disruption there immediately changes global prices. Markets react. Governments react. Military planners react. Insurance markets react. Every country dependent on stable oil. Supply watches Iran carefully because Tehran retains the geographic ability to create pressure far beyond its borders. And Washington understands that leverage very clearly. At the same time, Tehran understands America's leverage. Financial sanctions remain powerful. Banking restrictions matter. Secondary sanctions matter. Oil export enforcement matters. Access to capital matters. And Iran's economy has been absorbing sustained pressure for years. That creates a negotiation environment unlike most diplomatic talks. Both sides possess tools. Both sides understand escalation. Both sides understand the risks, and both sides understand something even more important. Neither side can fully control what happens if negotiations collapse. That uncertainty is what makes this moment unusually dangerous, because uncertainty changes strategic calculations faster than ideology ever does, and that is where regional actors become critical. Saudi Arabia is watching every signal, Israel is watching every signal. The Gulf states are watching every signal. Turkey is watching. Europe is watching. Russia is watching. China is watching. Because any agreement between Washington and Tehran immediately reshapes multiple regional calculations at once. Oil markets change. Defense planning changes. Proxy relationships shift. Investment calculations move. Military positioning adjusts. And every government involved begins recalculating the next 6 months. That is why these negotiations feel larger than a diplomatic meeting. They feel like a strategic checkpoint, a moment where multiple timelines intersect. The American election cycle, regional military posture, energy market stability, Iranian domestic economics, European diplomatic pressure, Israeli security planning, all converging at the same time, and once those timelines converge, every statement matters more. Even wording matters. When Washington says progress is possible, markets react. When Tehran says discussions were constructive, diplomats notice. When both sides avoid public confrontation for even 48 hours, analysts begin reading deeper meaning into every movement. That creates an atmosphere where even silence becomes strategic, and the silence has been noticeable, because the loudest voices on both sides have become slightly quieter. That matters. When rhetoric decreases during a high-pressure negotiation, it usually signals one of two things. Either collapse is close, or compromise is closer than either side wants publicly acknowledged, and right now both interpretations remain possible. That is what makes this moment unstable. Iran's leadership cannot appear weak. Washington cannot appear vulnerable. Both need political credibility, both need leverage, both need outcomes, and both are negotiating under external pressure from allies demanding very different things. Some regional partners want maximum pressure, others want de-escalation, some want guarantees, others want flexibility. That means Washington is negotiating not only with Tehran, but with expectations from multiple capitals simultaneously. Iran faces a similar challenge. Internal factions do not all agree. Some see diplomacy as necessary. Others see compromise as dangerous. Some prioritize economic stabilization. Others prioritize strategic resistance. And when those internal debates collide during negotiations, timing becomes even more important, because timing determines leverage. A statement issued too early changes expectations. A concession offered too soon weakens position. A public rejection closes doors. A private delay buys room. Every move becomes layered. And that is where this negotiation becomes especially important. Because beyond sanctions and enrichment, there is a larger strategic issue quietly shaping everything. Trust, or more accurately, the absence of it. Washington does not fully trust Tehran. Tehran absolutely does not trust Washington. Regional allies trust even less. That means any agreement requires structure, verification, sequencing, deadlines, compliance mechanisms, contingency plans, and every one of those details becomes politically explosive. Who moves first? Who verifies? Who pauses? Who resumes? Who enforces? Those questions sound technical, but they determine whether diplomacy survives, and right now every answer remains politically sensitive. Meanwhile, markets are already preparing for multiple outcomes. If negotiations succeed, oil pressure may ease. Regional risk premiums shift. Investment confidence changes. Shipping routes stabilize. Currency pressure changes. If talks fail, the opposite. Energy volatility increases. Military risk rises. Regional actors prepare for escalation. Insurance premiums move. Investors reposition. And Tehran knows this. Washington knows this. Both understand that the diplomatic room is affecting decisions far outside the building. That awareness changes tone, and the tone has clearly changed. There is more caution, more deliberate wording, more indirect communication, less immediate confrontation. That does not mean trust exists. It means both sides understand consequences. Which brings us to the real question. What does each side actually want? Washington wants nuclear restraint, predictability, and enough regional stability to avoid being pulled deeper into another military crisis. Tehran wants sanctions relief, economic breathing room, preserved sovereignty, and recognition of its regional relevance. Neither side will get everything. Both know that. Which means the actual negotiation is about trade-offs. How much relief? How much verification? How much restraint? How much flexibility? And how quickly? That speed question matters more than many people realize. A slow agreement can fail politically. A rushed agreement can fail operationally. A partial agreement may buy time. A larger agreement may trigger backlash. Every path carries risk, and there is one more factor shaping everything. Credibility. If Washington offers terms it cannot politically sustain, the agreement weakens immediately. If Tehran agrees to terms it cannot defend internally, the agreement collapses. So each delegation is negotiating externally and internally at the same time. That dual pressure creates visible caution, and you can feel it. In the wording, in the pauses, in the lack of trio. If it breaks down, consequences move quickly, and every capital involved knows it. Washington knows. Tehran knows. Jerusalem knows. Riyadh knows. Beijing knows. Moscow knows. Europe knows. Energy markets know. Investors know. Military planners know. Everyone is watching a negotiation that appears technical on paper, but carries geopolitical implications far beyond the room itself. And somewhere tonight inside Washington, officials are reviewing every signal coming out of Tehran. Inside Tehran, officials are reviewing every signal coming out of Washington. Every phrase, every message, every reaction. Calculating, testing, reassessing, trying to determine whether the next move creates stability or risk. Because diplomacy at this level is never only about what is said publicly. It is about what both sides believe the other side may do next. And that belief shapes everything. Oil, security, military posture, regional alliances, political credibility, future negotiations, everything. The headlines may focus on whether the talks continue tomorrow. That matters. But the larger question is deeper. Whether both governments believe there is enough strategic value in negotiation to keep moving forward despite pressure from every side. That answer is still being written. And until it becomes clear, every statement matters. Every delay matters. Every signal matters. Because the next movement between Washington and Tehran may not just define a negotiation. It may define the next strategic phase of the Middle East itself.